What stands out most here is not a goal, not a highlight reel finish, and not even one single piece of individual brilliance. It's the bigger truth behind all of it. Mohamed Salah has just helped Egypt reach the knockout stage of the World Cup for the first time in their history, and he's done it in the same way he has built his entire career, by refusing to let the fear of failure make him predictable. That, for me, is the real story. Because when we talk about Salah, the conversation so often starts and ends with output, goals, assists, decisive moments. But this qualification tells you something more important. It tells you why he remains such a defining player for both club and country. His influence is not limited to the final action. It starts much earlier than that. It starts with the attention he demands, the positioning he forces from defenders, the confidence he gives his teammates, and the constant sense that something can happen the moment he receives the ball. And that matters even more in tournament football. This was not just another group stage success for Egypt, this was a landmark achievement for the national team. Reaching the knockout rounds is a historic step for Egyptian football, and that immediately changes the meaning of the campaign. What might have been remembered as solid progress is now something much bigger. It is now a breakthrough. And when a national team reaches a moment like that, you always look for the central figure who carried the weight of expectation. In this case, once again, it was Salah. Now here's where the analysis gets interesting, because one of the biggest misconceptions in football is that elite forwards should be judged only by how cleanly they execute. That's not how top-level attacking football works. The most dangerous attackers in the game regularly lose possession, misplace passes, attempt dribbles that fail, and take risks that don't come off. Why? Because they are trying things most players wouldn't even dare to attempt. And Salah lives in that space. He thrives in one-against-one situations. He thrives in quick combinations around the penalty area. He thrives when there's space to attack behind defensive lines, but all of that comes with a cost. If you play that way, you will have moments where the pass doesn't stick. You will have dribbles that break down. You will have attacks that end without a clean finish. The point is not to avoid those moments. The point is to keep threatening until the decisive action arrives. That is what separates an elite attacker from a merely reliable one. Reliable players protect possession. Elite players distort games. And Salah's value to Egypt clearly goes far beyond the moments that can be counted on a stat sheet. The fact that defenders constantly adjust around him tells you he changes the geometry of the match. The fact that opponents dedicate extra attention to him tells you he changes their priorities. The fact that teammates gain confidence from his presence tells you he changes the mentality of the side around him. So even before you get to the final pass or the final shot, he is already affecting the match in multiple layers. That's why good coaches never try to remove that risk from his game. Managers understand that if you want a player like Salah to be decisive, you cannot turn him into a conservative forward. You have to build a system around the trade-off. You give him the freedom to attempt the extraordinary, and in return the team provides the defensive balance and attacking support needed to absorb the moments when those risks fail. That is a calculated exchange, not a flaw in the system, and throughout Salah's career that exchange has paid off again and again. So when Egypt secure qualification, it is not just a story about one player producing a moment. It is a story about a team trusting the qualities of its difference maker and building belief around him. That is why this achievement feels so significant. It reflects years of development around a world-class leader, but it also reflects a very clear football idea. If you remain organized and if you create situations where your best attacker can influence the game, you always give yourself a chance to change your level as a team. And then there's the personal dimension, which adds even more weight to this moment. Salah has carried enormous pressure in his international career. That is simply part of being the leading figure for a football nation, with millions expecting you to deliver on the biggest stage. So for him, this is not just another qualification. It is another milestone in a career that has demanded constant responsibility. And the fact that this milestone comes on the World Cup stage makes it even more meaningful. You could see that reflected in the reaction around him as well. Jurgen Klopp publicly celebrated Egypt's achievement and praised Salah's character and professionalism. That says a lot. Klopp is not just a former manager offering polite congratulations. Their relationship clearly extends beyond their years together at Anfield, and that public praise highlights the respect Salah has earned from one of the game's most successful modern coaches. When someone like Klopp emphasizes character and professionalism, it reinforces the idea that Salah's consistency is not accidental. It is built on standards, discipline, and physical conditioning that have allowed him to stay at an elite level over multiple seasons. And then there was the message from Sadio Mane, another former Liverpool teammate, whose congratulations carried their own significance. That moment reflected the bond shared by players from Liverpool's legendary attacking era, but it also served as a reminder of Salah's place within that generation. These are not empty gestures, they underline the respect he commands from those who know exactly what it takes to perform at the highest level. As for the turning point in the story, it wasn't a dramatic late winner or a spectacular individual goal. It was the confirmation itself, the confirmation that Egypt were through. That was the moment everything changed. In one instant, the campaign moved from being respectable to being historic. That is why qualification is the defining moment here. Not because it created noise, but because it changed the scale of the achievement. So what does this mean going forward? First, Egypt now enter the knockout rounds with genuine belief, and belief matters in tournament football. The challenge will obviously become tougher from here, but knockout football often rewards teams that stay disciplined and are built around one exceptional difference maker. Egypt now know they have that profile. If they remain defensively organized and can continue to create space for Salah in transition and attacking situations, they will believe they can trouble almost anyone. And that belief is not built on hype. It is built on a football reality. When you have a player capable of changing the match in a single moment, no opponent can relax. That changes the emotional pressure on both teams. It gives Egypt hope, and it gives every opponent a tactical problem they must solve for 90 minutes. There is also another layer to this, especially for Liverpool supporters. Salah's international success is a reminder of the legacy he leaves behind. His years at Anfield delivered extraordinary numbers, major trophies, and countless decisive performances. But moments like this remind people that his greatness was never just about club football. It was about sustaining elite standards, carrying expectation, and continuing to deliver in different contexts under different pressures for different teams. And that brings us to the final verdict. What we learned from this is not that Mohamed Salah is flawless. It is the exact opposite. What we learned is that his greatness comes from never allowing mistakes to shrink his game. The world's best attackers accept failure as part of the price of brilliance. Every unsuccessful dribble, every ambitious pass that doesn't connect, every attack that breaks down, those are not signs to stop. They are signs of a player still trying to unlock the match. That mentality has now helped carry Egypt into historic territory. So yes, this qualification was deserved because it reflected more than one result. It reflected leadership, tactical trust, and a willingness to build around a player who can change the direction of a tournament. And as the knockout stage begins, that is the warning for everyone else. Egypt arrived with belief, with discipline, and with a player who only needs one moment to make all the risk worthwhile.